Hello everyone, I am Dr. Bhumika Agrawal, Head of Humanities Department in Priyadarshini College of Engineering, Nagpur. Today I am going to discuss on the topic letter writing. Letter writing is such a topic which is being studied by all the students, whether they are school going students, college going, and in some courses at graduate and undergraduate level also this letter writing part is there in the academics. Now let us see what is the ideal format of writing a letter. Generally, letter writing is divided into two categories, formal and informal letter. So, formal letters are mostly addressed to officials, authorities, or employees, or at any workplace. Informal letters, whereas it is for relatives, friends. So, today in my video, I would be discussing on what is the ideal component of writing a formal letter. So letters, whenever we write letters, it has a distinct structure and layout. If we go before 10-15 years, most of the people they used to write letters either in indented form or in full block form. But nowadays, in full block form only, the letter writing is preferred. Letters require specific and formal wording. So whenever you are writing a letter for official purpose, you have to take care that you have to use proper words. It's not that you will use any word. You cannot have a very casual language whenever you are writing a letter. It should be an official language, and that's why one should be very conscious whenever a person is writing official letters for some any business purpose. Another important point is letters must be brief and to the point. Like unlike essay writing, in essay writing we give background information and we write on a particular topic the details and we extend those details for 4-5 paragraphs. Whereas in letter writing, a writer must be very brief and he should write the letter to the point. Now, I just let me tell you the general importance of letter writing. So, letters definitely help in sustaining business relationships and it also helps to maintain good rapport. Letters, I believe, are appropriate form of communication at workplace, and letters can be kept as a record for future purpose. So for reference also in future we can keep the record of letters so that whenever it is needed in future we can refer the letters sent to somebody or the letters received by somebody. Letters also help you reach a large and diverse audience, because through email you can post letters to many audience, and then you can reach to large number of audience if you use letter writing. Now, this is the preferred structure of letter writing. It is expected that a letter writer should use all these components of letter writing whenever he or she is writing a letter. Now, let us study all these components in detail. So, the first component is sender's name and address. So, in full block form, we write sender's name and address on left hand side of the page. So in the beginning, one should write the sender's names, means the person who is writing the letter. After that, designation of that sender you should write, and then name of the company, because it is going to be an official letter, name of the company or organization, institute, and then you have to write down address in short. It could be any a street number, post office number, or maybe plot number, sector number. So you have to mention all these things after name of the company, and then you should write name of the area, and then you should mention city and state along with pin code. Remember, nowadays, generally in letter writing, punctuation marks are not used whenever you are writing address. So try to avoid using punctuation marks like commas after every address line. So here I have mentioned one example that if a sender is, let us say Mohan Raut, so he will write Mr. Mohan Raut. Deshmukh Boarding School, means this is the name of the organization, and then simply Gokulpet, Nagpur, and then pin code. Then date. Many of the students and many people, they write date in many a times in a wrong fashion. So generally it is expected that in later writing you should avoid writing date with using dash or using obliques. So never write like 26-4-21. Instead of that, you should write either April 26, 2021 or 26 April 2021. So always avoid using dash or oblique while writing the letter and while dividing month, year and date from each other. Then inside address. So in inside address, one should take care about the audience to whom you are addressing the letter. If you are addressing letter to males, that is men, then you can write courtesy title as Mr. Sandeep or Mr. Jhulelal, or if you can simply write principal, we write it to the principal, or maybe to the professor, or maybe doctor, or maybe captain, justice, etc. Similarly, if you are addressing the letter to a lady faculty or a women, then you can write Miss or Mrs. Or you can simply write, if the lady is a principal, then you can write principal, professor, the way I have told you how to write for male. Then if you are addressing to a particular firm, you are not mentioning to whom exactly you are addressing, you are just writing a letter to a firm, then you can simply say Messrs. So Messrs, and then you can write down the name of the company. If you are writing to an organization or a company or an institute, so you can write down first the designation of the officer concerned in that organization. So you can begin with to the general manager, to the managing director, to the CEO, and then name of the company, like here Bharat Petroleum Limited. However, if you are writing a letter to some big personality, maybe celebrity or a person who is holding some big office, so for such people like president, prime minister, governor, chancellor, or maybe religious heads, so in that case, you can write his or her excellency, his or her highness, his or her holiness too. Then the fourth component of a letter writing is subject. So one should take enough time to decide what subject the sender should write, so that when reader will read the subject, he will understand what the letter is about. So in short, the subject should be the gist of the letter. So always remember that in subject, the writer should not write a complete sentence. Instead of that, the writer should write a phrase about the general content of the letter, and in that subject the entire gist of the letter should be there, so that the reader can immediately understand the letter is about what matter. So here I have given the example like permission for study tour, opening of bank account, or if you are inviting somebody for being a guest lecturer at your organization, then your subject will be simply invitation to be a guest lecturer. Then reference. See, reference is always not required. It is not that every letter should have reference. However, if you are talking something about some past experiences, then you can definitely mention reference after subject. So after subject, you can leave one line and then you can mention reference. So referring your previous communication, maybe you have received some communication, some letter from the company to whom you are writing. So you can mention the details about the previous letter, or you can even mention the advertisement if you are applying for a particular job after seeing advertisement in the newspaper. So you can say, for example, your quotation letter number dated on, and then or for if you are applying for a job and you have seen the advertisement of that job in a newspaper, so you can mention your advertisement in the Hitvada dated on. Then a sixth important component of a letter writing is salutation. So either you can, if you feel that the person to whom you are writing is a kind of your colleague or is a business partner, so you can directly address that person with the name. Like you can say, dear Mr. Gopi or dear Gopi Pandey. However, if you are not too much familiar with the reader or the person to whom you are writing the letter, in that case, you can simply say, dear sir or dear madam or dear students, dear committee members. So if you either you do not know the name of the person to whom you are writing the letter, or you feel that you are not that much familiar with that person, in that case, instead of writing the names, you can write down dear sir, madam, dear students, and whatever it may be. Then next, the important component of letter is the main body of the letter. So after salutation, after you have completed address, then date, inside address, then subject, reference, salutation, now comes the point of writing actual letter. So a business letter can consist of 3 to 4 paragraphs. However, we have observed that in most of the business letters, there can be 3 paragraphs. However, if you want to add some extra information, there could be 4 paragraphs too. Then always write one introductory paragraph, and then you have to write down the body of the letter, and then the last paragraph will be the concluding paragraph of the letter. And whenever you are separating one paragraph from another paragraph, you should have a space of 2 enter bars. So once you have completed one paragraph, press enter bar twice, and then you can begin second paragraph. Here, the one point you should always remember, that you have not to leave any space when you are starting the paragraph. Immediately when you press the enter button, and when you arrive on the left side of the page, you have to start writing without leaving any kind of space. And then complementary clause. Once you have completed writing the matter of the letter, then the next part will be complementary clause. So complementary clause can be written either in this way, yours faithfully, or simply faithfully, sincerely yours, or yours sincerely, or simply sincerely. And then there are other words which you can use, like truly, affectionately, respectfully, cordially, and so on. Here one more important thing is that when you are writing yours faithfully, remember that there is no apostrophe sign after R. There should be no apostrophe as there. It should be simply YOURS, no apostrophe sign. Then ninth component will be the signature block. So once you have written yours faithfully, now you have to end the letter. So you can just put your signature there, and after your signature, below your signature, you can write down your name and your designation or your title. And then after signature, you should leave 2-3 lines, and then you should write your name. Here I have already mentioned the example, like sincerely, and then I have left 2 lines, and then we have written the name Mr. Atul Patne, coordinator. And then the last point, that is enclosure. Again, remember that it is not that every letter should have an enclosure. Wherever it is required, you should mention that you are enclosing some documents along with the main cover letter, but it is not that every letter should be accompanied with one or the two enclosures. So suppose there are 2 enclosures, you should mention enclosure 2. And then you should mention what enclosures you are giving along with the main letter. So here I have given the example. Suppose you are you are including 2 enclosures like mark sheets or experience certificate. So you will write enclosure number 1, mark sheet, second enclosure, experience certificate. Or if you are inviting somebody for a program, so you can write enclosure number 1, schedule of program, enclosure number 2, invitation letter. So this is the sample application letter, where in the beginning you will find sender's address, then date, then receiver's address, subject, reference, then salutation, then body of the letter in 3 paragraphs, and then complementary clause, then that is yours faithfully, then your name, and then enclosures. That's all. Thank you.